Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like my channel, and any help would be appreciated. Anyway, on with the show. Today I'm going to be talking about the China-EU investment deal, which was signed last December. It was pushed through by Germany's Chancellor Merkel and Xi Jinping, and Xi Jinping had to kind of step in last minute and push through this deal. And it happened at a time when Biden was being sworn in, so America didn't really have much input. And some say it was a clever ploy by the Europeans and the Chinese to do it at that time when the US was at its weakest. Because at the time there was a lot of violence going on in Capitol Hill, and the US was dealing with a lot of crap. So that was the only time they can push things like this through without Americans getting involved. But anyway, it got pushed through. Americans weren't happy, but what can you do? But I saw this article today, so this is where we are right now. EU efforts to ratify China investment deal suspended after sanctions. So what does this all mean? What are my thoughts, and how did we get here? So I'm going to explain. So what is this investment deal? So we'll go down a bit further down and just kind of explain to you what it is. European firms will gain permission to operate in China's sectors including electric cars, private hospitals, real estate, advertising, maritime industry, telecom cloud services, airline reservation systems, ground handling. Some requirements that companies operate as part of joint ventures with Chinese partners will be lifted. China will ban forced transfer of technology and pledge to do more transparent on subsidies and bar state-owned enterprises from discrimination against foreign investors. So what does this all mean? First of all, it's a win-win for Europe, that's for sure. Europe has been trying for over 10 years to get into the Chinese market. And right now, if you want to get into the Chinese market and access is 1.4 billion people and huge amounts of money, you need to go on a joint venture with a Chinese company, and you also need to do some forced transfer of technology in order to kind of compete in China. And other things that I've kind of discussed is basically Europeans will get even playing field in China, which means they will be able to compete with tenders in the construction agents in the construction market, and they will also be able to compete with Chinese companies, and Chinese companies are not going to be heavily subsidized as well. So there's a lot of benefits for the Europeans to have, especially Germans have a lot of car manufacturers operating in China, so it'll be a huge win for them. So I'm going to go through these industries one by one. European firms will gain permission to operate in China in sectors including electric cars. So as you know, electric cars is a huge market in China, and it's grown so much over the past couple of years. Mainly started with Tesla coming in, but now you've got hundreds of different Chinese cars which are being developed in China. And this deal will allow a lot of German manufacturers to go into China and sell their own brand of electric cars as well. So it's a great win for Germany. Private hospitals, it's a great win for France. France actually pushed through this deal with the Chinese, so it's a great win for France on the private hospital side. Real estate, basically it means European companies can compete with Chinese companies when it comes to construction. As you know, there's a huge construction boom in China happening for the last 10-20 years. There's new cities being built from scratch. There's skyscrapers popping up everywhere. There's infrastructure work. There's high speed railways. There's so much work going on in China. Hydroelectric dams, power plants. So much work to be done in China, and the construction companies in China, some of them are in the top 10 most profitable companies in the world. I think there's about 3 or 4 in the top 10, which is amazing. Advertising means that European companies can advertise in the 1.4 billion market, which is going to be huge for advertising. The maritime industry, as you know, the maritime industry has been growing in China. They've got a huge kind of military fleet, but they've also got lots of ports being expanded all over China. The latest is the Hainan port in Hainan Island. So there's a huge amount of maritime stuff going on. Telecom cloud services, that's a huge sector that's been growing in China and will continue to grow. Right now it's been mainly done by companies like Ant, Tencent, Huawei, but there's many others that are up and coming, and also this will allow European cloud services to kind of compete with the Chinese ones. Airline reservation systems, ground handling. So airline industry, as you know, is a huge industry in China, and it's going to continue to grow and grow. It's the most busiest airport is in China, and also, you know, the amount of people that fly around in China is huge, and they're building new airports one every couple of years, and there's going to be huge boom in the airline industry. So there's a lot of work happening in China, really, and European companies will get a big taste of that and will be able to make lots of money going into China, and they don't have to go through any forced transfers, technology transfers, and they don't have to go through any basically joint ventures. So it's just a win-win, and it's going to be an even playing field with Chinese companies. So, you know, construction companies in Germany will be able to tender for big construction jobs in China. For example, if there's a hydroelectric dam that needs to be built, or a big skyscraper that needs to be built, you know, the German companies will be able to tender for that, and hopefully some of them will win. But right now it's just kind of all done by Chinese, really. So it's a huge win for the Europeans, so they'll be able to get into the Chinese market, which they wanted, really. This agreement has been negotiated for over 10 years, so this is what the Chinese wanted. The Europeans wanted. The Chinese themselves, they're not getting much in return, because the European market is pretty open, so Chinese companies have had a lot of freedom going into Europe and you know, and working in Europe, and their companies being in Europe. So the access in Europe is quite open compared to the access in China. But that could be mainly down to two things, really. I mean, number one, China has got a huge potential with 1.4 billion people, and plus it's the biggest growing economy in the world, and soon it will take over USA. So there is a huge benefit to be going into China, really, for European companies, and not the other way around. So why did China sign this then? If there's not much benefit for China, why did they sign it? Well, Xi Jinping came in the last minute, and he said he kind of pushed through this deal. He said, look guys, just sign it, will you? And the reason he wanted this, because they needed a friend in Europe. With all the human rights accusations and genocide, Uyghur population in concentration camps, there was a lot of lies flying around all over the world, and they needed a friend in Europe to kind of stand up for them and kind of push back against America and say, look guys, there's no proof this is happening, so, you know, lay down on the rhetoric a bit. And that's all China wanted. You know, they were happy for European companies to go into China, you know, make some money, but in return all they wanted was a bit of loyalty and a bit of help in terms of, you know, calming down all this rhetoric and lies that's flying around the West. And they just needed Europe to kind of calm down America, really, and they just needed a friend on their side from the West, and that's the only reason China agreed to this, really. So I want to kind of go to this here, so you can see that the agreement now needs to undergo legal scrubbing and needs to be signed by two sides before it's ratified and enters into force. On the EU side, it will have to be ratified by the European Parliament, and This process is estimated to take around 1 year. In addition, China and the EU set themselves 2-year deadline for the conclusion of negotiation of additional investment protection agreement. This means the EU will need to be on its best behavior towards China for several months if it wants to sign the agreement, and China may use this as a leverage for other policy areas. For one, EU may be less inclined to condemn vocally any human rights abuses in China or reckless behavior in China, in the Taiwan Strait or elsewhere. So what does this mean? It means the deal is still yet to be ratified by both sides, by the Europeans and by China. So how did we get here from there, really? I mean, this article was raised last year in December. So what he's trying to say is Europeans needed to be on the best behavior and the Chinese needed to be on the best behavior. So what's changed? Well, a couple of months ago, the Europeans basically put some sanctions on China for human rights abuses against the Uyghurs and forced labor and also some other things, genocide. And the Chinese were so angered about this because the only reason they agreed to this deal is to have Europeans kind of back them up and back them up and say, look guys, this is all lies, there's no evidence, calm down on the rhetoric. And they just needed a friend on their side. So what the Chinese see, they just see the Europeans just stabbing them in the back, really. So what they see is the Europeans, they want to come into China, make all the money from China, but with the other hand start slapping them in the face with the other hand, so they can't really do stuff like that, and the Chinese were very angered and insulted by this. So what did the Chinese do? They returned the sanctions against some parliamentaries and people that have been kind of speaking up against China about genocide, human rights. So they have kind of put some sanctions on them. So the Europeans were not happy about this, and so that's where we are today. And because of that, the Europeans now want to kind of suspend the deal. But here are my thoughts, really. Who gains to win from this deal? The Europeans. The Europeans are the only ones that actually benefit from this deal in terms of making the most money, because this is what the Europeans wanted for over 10 years. And now they're going to suspend it over some lies about human rights and genocide and all of it, just because they want to be on America's side. And it's just absolutely ridiculous how these Europeans and these parliamentaries think, really. I don't know who put these people in power. I mean, for the sake of the economy, which is doing really bad in Europe, they rather kind of follow America's lies and not go with this deal. And this deal only benefits Europe, so it just makes no sense why they would do this. And they're just shooting themselves in the foot, really. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's my thoughts, really. I mean, I'm just shocked by all of this, and me being a European, British myself, but I mean, we're not European now, but I still class myself as European. I'm just quite ashamed by how these Europeans are acting, really. There doesn't seem to be any common sense, and the only person with a bit of common sense seems to be Merkel, the German Chancellor, who has actually pushed this investment deal through. But all China needed, China came in last minute, agreed to this deal, and China was hoping Europeans would be on their side and help them in these, worldly matters, and just to kind of calm things down a bit and say to especially the Americans, say, look guys, this is, there's no evidence the Uyghurs are being killed and genocide. Genocide is a big, massive word. Basically you're calling China and rounding all these Uyghurs up and killing them one by one. I mean, the Europeans and the Americans have been the ones that are bombing people in Iraq and Syria, and NATO literally killed the leader of Libya, bombed him to death without any trial, without anything, really. I mean, the West have been killing people left, right and centre. America especially, with the human rights violations the Americans have been doing over the years, with Guantanamo Bay, with Abu Ghraib, and literally Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. Any Muslims they see that they think is a bit dodgy, what do? Do they take them to trial? Do they put them in concentration camps? No, they just bomb them to death. They kill them. you know, and you call that human rights? Seriously, I mean, this is a joke. So I want to know what your thoughts are, guys. So let me know on the comments. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.